My hat! Nine's a fun one. This is where we do all the shocks now. Just let my wife know that I took my ring off because I'm going to be working with some silicone oil. So this has a lot of parts and there's also a lot of options. Now I opened up all of the bags off camera and I just kind of sorted the parts. So in order to assemble the shocks, there's a variety of things that you're going to have to look at. One, you're going to look at these rod ends and you're going to select whether you want the short ones or the long ones. For this build, I'm going to be using the short ones, so I'll be using these top four. And the only reason why I'm using the short ones is, well, once they fit, I'll see if it was the better choice. But I want my shocks to be shorter. Now these do not snap off as easily as the other ones, so you will be needing your snips for these. Everything else seems to, so far, come off the spurs quite easily. But again, it's not a big deal. But you do have that selection. The reason why I'm going with the short ones, I'll try them out, is I'm planning on running this truck on carpet. If I were doing something with less traction, less grip, as many say, then I would maybe consider the long ones, just so I could have perhaps a little more droop or a little more droop really. But I don't think I need it because I'm going to be on carpet. So that's really the reason why. But I have these four. The rest of them I don't think I'm going to be needing, so I'll just put the spur over here. Then here you have these to choose from, and again, you have different sizes, and I'm probably going to end up going with the small. Maybe I'll go with the medium ones. But these I will decide later. Right now it's not important, but I'll put the large ones to the side. For this, when you start off with bag 9, you're going to start assembling the shocks. And here, what you're going to end up having is you actually have two different pistons. You have a 2x1.7 and you have a 2x1.6. So when you look at them, now I placed them in different sides so I wouldn't confuse them. One of them's the rear, one of them's the front, but if you look at them, the number will be there. You're not going to be able to see it on the camera, but this is the 1.6, and this one over here is going to be the 1.7. So the important thing is to not mistake them. Just double check everything. So this one here, where's the number? There's the number 1.7. So make sure that you put the 1.7s, according to this, in the rear, 1.6 in the front. So these will be the fronts, which will go with the short shafts. And these will be the rears, 1.7s, which will go with the longer shafts. The longer shafts are the rear. Usually, longer shocks tend to be the rear. Unless you're running touring cars, many touring cars run the same front and rear, but most off-road, you're going to be looking at longer rear than the front. So that's something to keep in mind. Now these little screws here, these are the minuscule screws that were in that bag. And these spacers, those are the ones that first I thought it was these washers, but it does not appear to be those washers. So I'm going to assume it's these right over here. If they're not, I'll let you know because it says nylon. These appear to be nylon. So other than that, these should be it. And the reason why, yeah, these are rubber. These generally go here at the bottom. So it's going to be these spacers here. But we're going to start building it, and then we'll see. Something else that you can also do is if you look ahead, I mean, I actually looked ahead, these parts over here, so you will see that these are these over here on this other side. So you'll need 2 of these for every one of those. So those check. We have 2 and then 1 of those. Then notice these here, these are going to be a flexible material. So these are rubber. I know it only has the number for 1, which would be these 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's the reason why I'm concluding these nylon ones. These have to be those nylon spacers. So just kind of pointing that out there, just so you don't think that I'm building something and, you know, trying to see what happens if it works out or not. No, I'm actually going through a process trying to separate everything. So that being said, I'm going to put this over to the side and I'm going to begin. Now the screws, assumption is you've already wiped them down lightly with alcohol. And I can start with the rear, I can start with the front, doesn't really matter. One thing that I am going to recommend though is if you don't have, and you can use shock oil to just cover everything up, but something that I like is actually this, this grease, this green stuff. It works well on all of these parts. But for now, because we are actually dealing with the piston, I'm not going to worry about that right now. So I'm going to grab this, I'm going to grab one of these small little screws. Now you're only going to be using 4 in this part of the build. The other 4 are going to go on the shock cap. So do not lose any of these because then you will have a hole in the shock cap and there's going to be nothing that you're going to be able to do. First thing you want to do is you want to grab the shafts. Now remember, the front ones use the shorter shafts, the long ones use the longer shafts, and the long ones are the rear, short ones are the front. So once you have the correct shaft, you're going to put the washer in here and make sure that you have the 1.6. So there is a number engraved in these. 1.6 is the rear, 1.7 is the 1.7 is the front, 1.6 is the rear. Now, you need to put that little metal, that washer there, that metal washer. What that does is, one, it gets rid of the slack here, so if you put the screw, it won't be bouncing up and down. But another thing is, that's a reinforcement. Keep in mind that this piston is going to be pushed up at a great force. So that reinforces the plastic so that the piston here doesn't get damaged easily. Now let's see. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and grab the screw. Assumption is you already cleaned the screws with alcohol or something to get rid of all of the machining oil. But put a little bit of thread lock and then screw this in. It doesn't have to be tight yet. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I apologize. So it's 2 for the front, 1 for the rear. That's the reason why. That makes sense. So I'm working on a rear one. I'm just going to place one of the spacers here. Again, front, you would use 2. I'm going to use the long body, because this is the rear body. And this is going to go right in here. But before I place it in there, I want to put the green slime on the shaft and then also on the other components. So let me just do this first. Get this ready. And again, you can use grease, you can use a variety of things. I prefer the green slime. Here we go. And let's grab the other components and just fill this up. So one of the things that you will need is you will need this O-ring. This O-ring is just going to go in here, and I should have actually just put some slime there first. Not a big deal. And the reason why is, one, you don't want to over tighten this, but when you tighten, it helps the aluminum piece just slide over it so it creates a better seal. And now we're going to grab one of these. Now these here, these small little plastic pieces, you can't really see, but it's like a little hat. So there's a wider side and a narrower side. The narrower side goes in. So the larger flat side goes out. And I'm just checking to make sure this didn't flip, and it did not. All right. So that is perfect. Now at this point, I'm going to use these here, and I will need one of these in between. So this other one, this looks like a 2mm spacer perhaps, maybe 3. That's going to be sandwiched between both of these O-rings. These are white O-rings. And just covering them up with grease. I'll place one in there. And you can use your driver. I'm going to use this. The main thing is when you set it, make sure that it seats properly. So it should be in there and it should be round. You should be able to see. Now I can place this other component. And when you take these off the spur, they break off quite easily, which is good. But do clean them lightly. Do not use a file and remove too much material. It's just a light cleaning that they need, just so they're holding their shape. All right. So that works. All right. There we go. So once you have that, you're going to grab one of those little hats, and now the small side is going to go toward the O-ring. So the larger side is going to face away. And that's what we will have here. At this point, you can grab one of these aluminum bottom pieces. So when you grab this bottom cap, you're just going to place it, but do not tighten it fully. And the reason why is if you tighten it fully, it will be a little more difficult for you to place the shaft. Now, right now what I'm doing is that plastic bit wasn't aligned properly, so it's just fitting it. Oh, actually, one moment. I think I checked. All right. So actually the wide portion goes toward the O-ring. The narrow portion goes toward the cap. So that is one little correction to make. So it should look like that once you assemble it. So the plastic should come out of the aluminum. Well, not come out. It should be flush with the aluminum. But do not tighten it fully. And the reason why is once you stick this inside, the way the O-rings work in there is once you tighten the cap, they will create a stronger seal. And it will be a tighter seal. So in order to get the shaft in, it will be a greater challenge for you than it will if you just leave it open lightly. That's the reason why. But that being said, I'm ready. All right. Here we go. So this will go in there. Make sure that you have that spacer that's in there. So rear is 1, front is 2. And this should just slide right in. And you want the slime so that it slides and it doesn't tear the O-rings. Now once it's here, now you can tighten this. And I mean, you will feel it get a little tighter there. Once you have this, one of the things that you can do is you can place your driver here. So just going to place my driver there. Move it, whatever's comfortable. Now I'm going to grab one of these, so you can do this. Now again, if you have shock pliers, you can just hold the shaft and then rotate this. But let's assume you don't. Depending on the shock pliers, they could be pretty expensive, but yeah, they're worth it. Here I'm kind of regretting showing you, to be honest, how to do this without pliers. But I'm determined. So there's no threads here, so you're threading them for the first time. And that's the challenge that I'm having. Let's see if I can find out here. So then I can't hold this. All right, well, let's just say you don't have shock pliers. That's fine. Use something like this, for example. Use the pliers again. These pliers have no teeth, so I'm not worried about them marking. And just going to hold this and spin. So this is by far the easiest way. So you can easily do this without shock pliers. You don't have to spend, nice pair is probably about $40. Might be some less expensive ones. If you know of less expensive ones, put them in the chat. It's something that's good quality that you would recommend. All right, and that's it. So now that this is here, we have a variety of things that we still have to do. One, make sure this is lubed. So if you use the green slime, as I did, it is. So that is good. So I'm going to stop moving it up and down right now. But I'm going to get the cap ready. So the shock cap, all four of them are going to be the same. There's already a hole, so they're already vented. So you're going to use another one of those little screws, the same minuscule screw that you use to hold the piston onto the shaft. And you're going to pre-thread this. So if you just place the screw, you don't have to go all the way in. You're just starting it. I think the manual says to do 1 or 2/3 turns. I did several. But that is it. You get this ready. Now I'm going to use one of these larger O-rings, and this larger O-ring will just fit right inside. Right in here. And I'll use one of these to press it in. Wait, nope, made a mistake. This isn't pressed in. This is just going to go on the outside. That makes sense. Some of you were probably looking at it. You already knew the answer. It's been a while since I've built this. Actually, I haven't built a 6.2. This is my first 6.2. I've built a 6.1, which, to be honest, is the same thing. If you've built an associated vehicle, they're very similar. All right, so that is ready. So now I'm going to go ahead and pour the oil, and I'm going to go ahead and just use the factory oil, whatever they provided, which is this 30 weight, it appears to be. And I'm just going to fill it, but I'm not going to fill it to the top, although I could. And I'm going to fill it just high enough to where I push this, and I should see the air come out. I pushed up. Go back down. See, there's some air bubbles. I think you saw them. Go as far as I can. Go down. All right. So there's a lot of little air bubbles there, and I'm just waiting for them to just surface and pop because I do not want that air in there. So here I just compress it slowly. That's all you do. And the reason why is there's air beneath the piston and the lower part of the shock body. That's the reason why. Just going to wait, have some of those air bubbles pop. Something else, to be honest, that works is you can stick a thin driver in there and just poke at them. They go away, paper clip, whatever you have, a pick. You can use that. That works as well. All right, I am ready. So just go ahead and fill it. If you pour a little too much on there, it's no big deal really. It will leak out. So that's the reason why I'm going to use this rag. I'm going to place the rag here. And I'm going to grab the cap. Now the cap, I generally spin counterclockwise first until I hear it sort of snap down in place. Just like that. and then I'll start threading. And the reason why is these are plastic shock caps, and I do not want to cross thread them. It's a lot easier to cross thread the plastic shock caps. But for those of you that are planning on getting aluminum ones, you can get aluminum ones. Don't need them though. Plastic ones are more than adequate for this build. And this is also a different type of plastic. It's a different type of nylons that they use. They're very, very good. But here, at this point, I'm going to start bleeding. So right here, this is your bleeder here. This is where the shock will bleed. So once it's filled, right, you put the cap on. So make sure, again, recommendation, thread left first. As you're sort of pressing down lightly, you're going to hear that click, and then you start threading to the right so that you tighten everything. Now, it's installed without the bleed screw, and then you tighten it completely. After that, what you're going to do is you're just going to slightly move it forward. So just slightly, well, not slightly, you're going to go all the way. And one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the rag here. You're going to go all the way slowly just to bleed the excess air out. I'm going to hold it here. And I'm actually holding the shock with the table, so I'm pressing down. The reason why is I don't want I don't want it to expand. And the reason why I don't want it to expand is I don't want it to suck any air through the hole here. Now I'm going to install the screw that works as a cap. And again, this goes snug. If you over tighten, you're going to ruin the cap, and then you won't get a proper seal. Here you go. Maybe you don't want a proper seal. Maybe you want a walrus or a penguin. That's a possibility. I don't know, but proper seal is the way to go. And that is it. So this should be just smooth. It does come out just a little bit. Yeah, it's fine. But that is it. Everything's tight. Everything's good to go. At this point, you're going to pick whichever ones you want to use. I'm going to use the bottom ones for now. These snap off really easy and very clean. So I'm going to leave it. The long springs are going to be the rear springs, and I'm going to go ahead and install this. I'm just going to slide the spring. Now this here is only one way, so if you've never built an RC, maybe you're thinking of getting something like this as your first RC, I mean, go for it. More power to you. The first thing you don't want to forget, again, don't do this at 4 in the morning, is this here. So this nut, this is what's going to control the height of the spring. So as you can see, this is really nice anodized, and this is one of the things that you are paying for with this type of kit. So when you buy a kit like this, you're paying for all of these machined parts as well, the anodized. Now, one thing I forgot to put the O-ring in here. But the quality and the color is just very nice. I am curious to see how the color holds, because sometimes anodized does fade after a while. So I'm curious how this would work. Just a really quick note, I was just seating this properly. I am going to put a little bit of this green slime here. This O-ring is really just so this color doesn't loosen and holds the position. So even with the aluminum, so I'm going left, there. Not sure if you heard the little snap. Now I can go right. But even with aluminum, you can always cross threads, and these threads are really fine threads. But right now I'm just moving the collar up. I'm not sure where I want this. I will not know until once I finish building the entire truck, put battery, everything, then I can adjust these for the height. Right now I'm just going to get it close, 1-2 millimeters. I mean, maybe even more, and then I can loosen it later. But right now, just going to move it up, and so that's close enough. So right there, there's a gap. Now I'm going to go ahead and place the spring, and now I can go ahead and grab this little spring cap. So the little spring cap is going to kind of snap in. Now one of the things that I would like, although these are tight fitting, so maybe that's why they don't do it, is the little screw. I like when it has a little screw and then the spring cap screws onto that. And oh, this is really loose. That's probably because I used the thinner one, so I'm going to have to move this one further down. I'm going to tell you about what distance. So if you use the small ones, probably about 5 millimeters, maybe even a centimeter. Let's see, that's, oh yeah, we will be going a centimeter. 5 millimeters is way too little. Let's see. That's about a centimeter. All right, that's good enough. So here we go. So that's one shock.